There are so many power users that absolutely hate the Gnome desktop. Why? Especially like the old school people, the people that have been around for more than 10 years. That have used Linux for more than 10 years. Why do we hate the Gnome desktop? It's pretty simple, really. I think everybody loved the Gnome 1 and Gnome 2 desktops. They were very popular. They were as popular as the Unity 7 desktop, for example. That was a very popular desktop. The other desktops that were really, really popular was like XFCE. That was a really popular desktop. A lot of people liked using it with Compiz. Again, done the same thing with the Gnome 2. But something happened. The lead developer, the guy who started the Gnome project, decided he was going to go in a completely different direction. And he came out with Gnome 3. And I mean, nobody liked it. And Plasma had kind of a similar experience as well, right? The KDE 3.5 was loved by everyone. KDE 4 was loved by no one. Then Plasma 5 comes out, and then again, they showed why some of their concepts and ideas were good ideas. In Plasma 6, you're seeing just how great the Plasma desktop is. And I think for laptops, Plasma 6 is probably about as good as the Linux desktop is ever going to get. And I will admit something about Gnome 40, and this is a compliment. It is better than I ever thought it would be. That said, I'm still not a fan. I remember that transition from Gnome 2 to Gnome 3. It kind of pissed me off, to be honest, but not that much. And I'll tell you why it didn't really bother me, because when they went from Gnome 2, at that time I was using Ubuntu, and so the Gnome 2 was the default desktop on up till Ubuntu 9, I think it was. And then Ubuntu 10.04 came out with the Unity 7 desktop, and it had a lot of bugs and problems, but overall I kind of liked that desktop, to be honest. And so I used that desktop, and I just thought, okay, well, I don't have Gnome 2, and I don't like Gnome 3 at all. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And this is kind of one of those things where you have to ask the question, what was, like, if someone has an idea for a good laptop desktop, right? Especially when one of the things that was coming out were touchscreens. What were they supposed to do? Were they supposed to just turn their back, or were they supposed to go in that direction or start a new project? I honestly don't know what the right answer would have been. I'm just being perfectly honest, and I'm not trying to cast a bunch of hyperbole. This is just what happened. Then Mate comes out. Now, Mate was not Gnome 2. Okay? I could do all kinds of things on Gnome 2 that I couldn't do on Mate, and it was frustrating to me. Was it 98% Gnome 2? Yes. But there were 3 or 4 deal breakers for me. The number one deal breaker for me about Mate is I couldn't take the icons off my desktop screen. Not even with dbus or any other tool. And everybody said you could do it. I never figured it out. I looked through forums, I tried everything I could think of, and I couldn't get rid of the icons off my desktop. I like a clean desktop look. I'm not a Windows user, guys. It just really wasn't the same. But I mean, if I'm being honest with myself, kind of looking back, would the Gnome desktop have evolved to something very similar to the Mate desktop? I think someone could certainly make the case for that. And so whenever you run into someone like me who's been around a while and you see people who absolutely hate the Gnome desktop, This is why. It has nothing to do, it's nothing personal, and it probably has nothing to do against the developers. Like, there are very few people who really care what the developers do or what their beliefs are or anything else. And, I've had some bad run ins with some of the developers from Red Hat, but I mean, overall, do I think all of them are bad developers or they're all bad people or all. No. There's a couple out there that just kind of irk me if I ever have to deal with them. In fact, I don't deal with them. That's kind of how I handle that. Anyway, I don't remember the guy's name who's the lead dev. I could look it up. I don't care that much about it, but I wanted to kind of give you guys kind of a heads up because if you haven't been around the Linux community very long, maybe you might actually start thinking that we're just all a bunch of toxic old men like myself, that we're just boomers, that we're helpless and hopeless, and that, we just hate progress. And that's not the case. Somebody turned their backs on us, and then they want us to come back. That's what it's all about. And again, I sympathize with the developer here because I honestly don't know what the right answer would have been. But it had to have been handled better. There are a lot of PR campaigns that we have lost in the Linux community. This one isn't the only one. What about Ubuntu? What about Ubuntu 1804? Do you guys remember that? Where they were promising us Unity 8 with Mir as the window compositor. Remember that? And it was supposed to work on your phone and your computer, and they were working so hard on it, only to be told, yeah, we're Xing that project. We're going to Gnome. I understand now what was going on. There's this Wayland craze, and they saw the writing on the wall, and they saw that Wayland was just inevitable, and so they jumped on the Wayland train. That was their decision, and it wasn't a right one or a wrong one, but that's exactly what they did. And they pissed off a bunch of people in the process. Why? Because they didn't articulate that fact. Wayland wasn't that popular, but there were a lot of developers in Red Hat who were expending a lot of resources to develop it. Ubuntu was privy to a lot of information that the average person wasn't. And it's pretty funny, but like of all the complaints I heard, I was hoping for one voice. One voice in maybe, I don't know, from DistroTube or a big YouTube channel to, let us know what's going on. But nobody said anything. There was no forums saying, hey, there's a real logical reason why they went with Gnome, and it was just money. It didn't make any sense to continue with Unity. That's all they had to say. Hey, you know what? It was just the wrong time. It was just the wrong project. Do I think that Unity 8 desktop could probably win the desktop award if it went and actually worked with Wayland? Yeah, I think there's a good possibility of that. However, this is just for educational purposes here. I just want to let you guys know that, in the community, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that you and I are not privy to unless we really dig. And that has been a problem. And it's not so much what they're doing, it's the secrecy. It's not so much what they're doing, It's the dishonesty, like what happened with Ex Libre when somebody forked Xorg. That's not a crime. That's part of a healthy open source ecosystem. And this is a long held tradition. He even changed the name out of respect. I would have given you a stiff middle finger. I would have just forked it, made the changes, and released it. He changed the name. Now, I want just to end with this thought as well. Somebody says, just because I heart all the comments, that I'm just some sort of shill or something, that I'm not very genuine in my criticism. I put that heart there. I'm not even saying that I like the comment. Really, it's my way of, just keeping track of which messages I've seen. And I'm acknowledging to you that I saw the comment personally. If you don't get a heart, it means I didn't see it. And that's just the simple fact. I just make that acknowledgement. I saw the comment, so I heart it. Do I like some comments? Very few. There are a few that, like, oh wait, that's an original comment, or hey wait, that's something that I hadn't thought of, or hey, that was really helpful. Yes, I'll put a thumbs up on it. Anyway, I hope this video reaches you in good spirits, and hopefully you gained a little bit more perspective of where people like me are coming from. If you want to check out my manifesto, check that out right over here. And I want to thank these amazing people right here. And I'll see you later. Ciao.